Well, before the Battle of Culloden takes place, a few things need to happen in an episode full of goodbyes and full of uncertainty whether these goodbyes may be the last. Hey guys, Cameron for Outlander, Season 2, Episode 12, The Hail Mary, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode, especially after last week's episode with that awesome cliffhanger, not knowing what was going to happen. And this episode, I thought, was another amazing episode. A lot of really hard scenes to watch in this episode, and like I said, really an episode full of uncertainty. There's a lot of goodbyes in this episode that takes place because of the upcoming war, and there's a lot of uncertainty where these goodbyes, are going to be the last or not. And it very well focused more, I think, on the supporting cast than it did on the main cast. Not that it didn't focus on Jamie and Claire, but this definitely was more about Mary and, Dougal. Those were the two characters we focused on this episode. Jack was also back in this episode, which was awesome, but let's get into this episode because it overall was amazing, and really did love it. Not the best episode of the season, but I think basically on the same level as last week's episode. I really love this episode overall. A bit messy, I definitely will say that, but let's just get into it. So we start off in a battle map with two sets of opposing forces, including ever closer to one another. Claire and Jamie come into frame on horseback. Claire looks very tired. The Scottish flag is towered, and the men are very tired too, because they've been fighting this war like crazy. And Fergus is exhausted. They've made camp outside Inverness and can rest there safely. And Fergus chides Murtaugh, says, "You look as if you need sleep." The soldier tents are set up on the green of a grand home. Claire narrates that their worst nightmare was coming true, and she felt completely helpless in spite of it. That maybe they are getting a bit weak. Maybe they're not going to be able to fight this war. And Ross and Rupert have buddied up since they're losing their significant others, and basically Ross teases Rupert about his eye patch. Here we learn he lost the eye, we find out, which is crazy, but I like that there's been battles going on and we haven't seen them, because we do get the sense that this battle has been continuing. They're having mini battles that we haven't seen. That's how a war works. They're just random battles, and it seems here that there were a bunch of battles that just happened, and basically Jamie instructs Dougal to set on a scout mission to follow the British. Then he directs Murtaugh to call a war council, and Murtaugh's very skeptical. He's concerned that they're close to Culloden, and he's also concerned that, Claire's also very concerned. He really feels that they're just too close, and that they're not going to be able to win Culloden because they're so weak, and obviously, that is what Claire's trying to prevent. She's trying to prevent the Battle of Culloden. She's trying to prevent them from losing, and she wants them to win, and this is obviously really not working in the way she wanted it at all. In fact, she even says, all that work, how did they bloody hell did they end up there? I mean, it's a great quote, because really everything they've done this season has been them trying to prevent the Battle of Culloden and not prevented, but get them to win. Try to prevent them from losing the Battle of Culloden, and now it seems like their fate is already sealed, that they're already going to lose, and Claire really has no idea what to do, and that's one of the best parts of this episode, is not knowing whether or not they're actually going to win this battle, because really, we don't know. I mean, yeah, we heard in the premiere, but we didn't actually see what went down, so we're not actually sure what's going on, and that's something I really enjoyed, and I think they showed that really well. I definitely really enjoyed that. I think that was a very well done scene. Hard to watch, definitely, just knowing that they're losing, but a really good way to start the episode. Definitely really like that. And Jamie, we see, though, he's hopeful. He's actually hopeful of her spite and worry. He wants to convince Claire to see reason. Now, I think this is more, you don't really know if this is Jamie just actually being hopeful, or if he's just saying this to be content with himself and try to keep himself from, completely losing it, because he is a leader and he wants to be strong, and he prepares to leave and see the welfare of his men. While Claire is into town to replenish supplies, they kiss. Fergus is wiped, napping with his head down on the table, and it's a really nice scene. I really like the way it was done, but then we get more into what the rest of this episode is about in this next scene. So Claire basically goes to this apothecary, basically, and she hears this very odd request of ginger, chamomile, arsenic, and laudanum, and she's startled to learn that Mary is the one that's asking, and we see Mary in this episode, and Mary, I think, really, this might be her final appearance. I really don't see what else they can do with Mary after this episode. This really did feel like this is Mary's final episode, and just the way it was written, the way that Mary's arc went, especially with the conclusion here, this really felt felt like a conclusive arc, and I really feel this is the end of Mary's arc, because as we know, we're going to be changing things in season 3. We already saw that in season 2. There was going to be a big change in season 3, and I think this episode really does note at that. That basically, a lot of these characters, we're not going to see Mary anymore. So she's very happy to see her. She asks what Mary is doing in town, and Mary informs her that she is with Alex, and Claire's genuinely happy for her because this is what Mary wants. But Mary, we can tell, is not happy. She's actually angry, and basically, she explains that she now knows of Claire's interference in the relationship, and she's not happy with Claire. And I love this more tough side of Mary that we got in this episode. This is no longer the happy-go-lucky Mary who's so innocent. No, Mary actually is genuinely pissed at Claire because she knows that Claire's the one that interfered. Claire is the one that told Alex to give Mary a chance, and really, she's really pissed about that. And obviously, Alex would tell her. You can tell that he really does like her and everything, and basically, she explains that she now knows, and Claire apologizes, asks to tend to Alex. Mary obliges. They've taken a room at McGillivree's boarding house, and I like the way that was done. Really good stuff there. So we cut to soldiers on horseback, riding up to the encampment house. The grass looks saturated in colors. The prince sits in the front of the fireplace, dressed in ornate plaid, and he does not look like a Scottishman, despite his efforts, and the heads of states discuss their best plan to fight, and someone suggests Culloden Moor, and Jamie interjects that it's a perfect spot for the British. Culloden Moor is plain flat ground, and without sufficient cavalry and artillery, their lines will be smashed to pieces. And basically, it's a terrible idea, because that's where the British are going to find them, and obviously they're against the British. They need to make sure the British don't find them, and this won't really end well for anyone if someone does that. So other clans are claiming that they'll just get the job done, and Jamie says, what's the point? He implores the prince to walk to the camp and observe the men. They are all too exhausted. Then he mentions the French gold and inquires of its whereabouts, and he makes the point that if they have access, they can replenish food stocks and weaponry. Then, with a well-rested army, they can choose better ground and defeat the enemy once and for all, and basically it shouldn't be a problem, that they'll be able to defeat the enemy, and that this should work for them in the way they want it to. And again, you really do get the sense that Jamie's just trying to, give them encouragement and confidence, because they're slowly losing that encouragement. I can't talk today. I don't know why I'm saying things that aren't even words, but Charles compliments Jamie, but claims he is not a frightened hare to be run down by some British hounds, and therefore is uninterested in retreating. And basically, Charles says that he is a man, he's a soldier, and he shall comport himself of one, that he is not just going to, stray away. He's going to basically do that, and we then see he peers out the window at his starved army. His decision is made. The men will rest before riding to Culloden, and Jamie looks like he's gonna throw up, because basically, it's a terrible decision. He doesn't know why they're going to do this, and really, things aren't in his control. He really can't control this. It was a group decision, and he's really pissed that this is what they did, but there's really nothing to do with that. I really like the way the scene was done. I will say, some of the scenes are just them talking about the battle just really weren't interesting, because how interesting Claire's stuff was. But this wasn't bad. It just, I felt like we didn't really need, because we had so much talk about the battle. I get that we're getting ready for the battle, but a lot of this here just was very repetitive dialogue, and it's really the only thing I could really complain about with this episode. So we see, as usual, Claire is pretty much determined, and she's concerned as she walks the dreary streets of Inverness on her way to find Alex and Mary. She pushes her way into the room, hearing the painted coughs from within, and inside she finds Mary feeding arsenic to a bedridden Alex, and you can see that Alex is pretty near death. He's not really going to make it in this episode. They kind of give you some hope, but I think you can pretty much tell that he's probably going to die, and we see Claire informs her that the arsenic will make him look better physically, but not fix his horrid cough. Obviously, it's poison, so it's not really going to help much, but it's hellacious to listen to, really. Just hearing his cough, I mean, it really was hard just to know that, holy shit, this is actually happening, and Claire goes to work, and especially because we haven't seen a lot of Mary and Alex's relationship, and we really get the sense that Mary hasn't had a lot of time with him, and Claire then goes to work taking temperatures and feeding lymph nodes, and Alex is sweaty, disheveled, he's clearly dying, he's trying to talk, he's happy to see her. Mary tells him to save his breath, and he says that, he asks if he remembers, Claire, and we see Jack is back in this episode. Now, it made sense, obviously, why Jack had to come back. His brother's near death. We've seen that Jack really does care about his brother. We haven't seen a lot of Jack in a while. I think even ever since they went back to Scotland, we haven't seen a lot of Jack, but he's out, and it's really weird in this episode, because he's actually out of uniform, and he's there to leave to visit his brother, and the Jack we get in this episode is just as possessive and controlling as the Jack we've seen, but a little bit more sympathetic, and a little bit more concerned about his brother, and you kind of actually get the sense that he kind of maybe has a backbone, and maybe does have a heart. You kind of get that sense here, and basically, until the end of the episode, which we'll get into, Claire's on edge, but she's fascinated by the interaction that, that he's there. She didn't actually think that he'd show up to see his brother dying, and she learns that Jack is, basically paying their bills. He's been paying all their money, and basically he's been the one that's giving them all this money, which makes sense because he's so, rich, and Alex doesn't seem to be as rich, and Mary asks for Claire's professional diagnosis and inquires as when he can go back to work, and she says that she needs to start making reparations with her family, and Claire advises, she informs her he can't be cured, and Mary refuses to accept these words as she grabs her belly. We find out that Mary is pregnant, and both Alex and Jack know, and it's really sad, actually. I really did feel bad for Mary here, because that pregnant, she's pregnant from the Duke's rape. That's, in fact, how she's pregnant, and it's really sad to see, but, at least they know. At least they know there's no her hiding that from her, because that'd be stupid if she was. My only question, now, this obviously is not going to be Frank. That's not who this is going to be. It's not going to end up being Frank, because we know that Frank is obviously a distant, these are distant ancestors of Frank's, but, that's a big, part of this, is that in order for, him to come back, for him to be alive, Jack needs to live. We know that. So, and of course, we also know that this episode, it's not surprising that Alex is dying, because we know there has to be a way for Jack and Mary to get together, or Frank is never born. We've heard that all season, and it's not just the fact that he'll never be born, it's the fact that Claire will never come to Craignadoon and never discover Craignadoon if Frank is never born. That will pretty much just change everything and really fuck things up for everyone. So I really like the way that was done here. Jack approaches them, saying that Alex is asking for her, and she runs to his aid. And I like that Jack actually, again, kind of cared for Mary, and Claire scowls at Jack and leaves. She knows that he has some sort of ulterior motive, but she also knows she doesn't really want to do anything, because Mary, she knows she can't really do anything. Alex is dying, there's nothing really she can do, and he follows her, grabs her arm. She looks like she wants to kill him. She literally looks like she's on the verge of killing him, and he advises her to not take out her aggressions on him, on his brother. Now, of course, we know the reason why. The reason why she's so pissed is because the last time she heard about Jack is what he did to Fergus, and the fact that he raped Fergus. I mean, it's disgusting. It really is, and that's why she really wants to kill him. So he advises her not to take out her aggressions on him or his brother. After learning she cannot, in fact, heal Alex, he requests she at least eases pain, and Claire agrees, but for a price. She says, look, okay, I'll do that if you tell me where Cumberland's army is, and Jack says that he asks for his brother, Mary, and their unborn child, and that's basically what he wants. So, really well done scene. Just the, Tobias Menzies in that scene, again, really killed. He kills it every scene he has. He just has such gravitas, and I think such, just such a presence in every scene, and even as good as, Caitriona Bell is, I think he really is fantastic. He really did a great job, and, he really was great this entire episode. He's great in every episode, but especially this episode, he really was fantastic. So she returns to Jamie, informs him of her day and her subsequent run, and he's furious to the point of knocking over furniture, not at her, but the fact that Jack's now shown up, he's really pissed about, obviously, and he's intrigued by her news of the British location, and he wishes to confirm the information in 2 days, because this way, since someone that's, British is there, there's a way to stall that, maybe stall them from getting there, maybe there could be a way that Claire could help them, and Cumberland will have a birthday celebration we find out in 2 days, and this softens the blow, and she also tosses out that she plans on tending to Alex's health full-time, and he points off that Jack is unlikely to kill her if when he dies, and she counters that she'll take Murtaugh, and that's what she decides to do. So her and Murtaugh go basically to find out what's going on, because obviously she doesn't, Jamie's telling her, look, there's no way you're safe around Jack. We know how destructive Jack is, we know what Jack can do, there's no way that you're safe around Jack. So a group of soldiers then ride at night, a carriage halts, and we see Colum's bowed legs emerge, and Rupert says, would you be so kind as to tell me what the Mackenzies are doing here? And Colum, white-haired and robed, is carried in like Claire. He too laughs. He too looks fatigued, and Colum says he's sorry to hear of Angus's death. He always thought when that bastard fell that he would fall with him, and it's really sad to see, because Rupert actually was supposed to die. Diana Gabaldon said, I think that's how you pronounce her name, Gabaldon, she said in the original book that Rupert was supposed to die in the church, and he didn't die, and the reason she didn't do that is because, again, she wanted Angus's death to feel somewhat big. She wanted to feel like a big deal, and really it has felt like a big deal. Outlander doesn't kill off characters, very often. A lot of times they don't do that, so this is quite surprising that they did kill off this character. I like the way that was done, and it's a very sad scene, definitely, especially because we haven't seen Colum a lot, but Colum wishes to speak to Dougal, but Jamie tells him Dougal's mission to follow the British, and Colum approves of Jamie's tactics, and he says, give my brother enough authority to keep him content, but not enough to grant for more. And Jamie jokingly agrees. Claire joins, because he knows, of course, his brother so, wants power and everything, and Claire joins his side. Colum wishes to speak to Claire alone. Jamie obliges, but he will be close by. She offers him a drink. He refuses, but goes on to compliment her and Jamie as a match. She recalls a time when he found their union less agreeable, and he says that he was wrong. That's one of the players of dying. He can finally admit his mistakes. It also makes it easier to ask for favors. And as we know, Colum's dying. This is going to be the last time that Dougal, that he really sees anyone. Colum is definitely dying, and we see we can see his pains are growing by the day. She offers laudum, and he says it only dulls the senses and would prefer something more final. And she understands but questions the mortal sin of suicide. And he says, what's one more sin to a sinner? And then he pays tribute to the quick death that Galus gave her husband. He welcomed the same. She explains that death by cyanide is painful regardless. He leaves the details to her. Additionally, we actually find out something about Galus, which we haven't seen Galus this season, but we do hear that her baby lives. And apparently they only burned her at the stake after she bore the babe, and a boy who is currently in the care of William and Sarah Mackenzie, a barren couple. And it seems that Galus is dead. I guess that's our way of finding out that Galus died, which is kind of sucks because I wanted to see more of Galus, but she died apparently, and I understand why they do this. Obviously, there's no way they could get back to Galus in time, so they had to kill her off, and Dougal does not know that, Dougal does not know about this at all, because we know that Dougal kind of like Galus, and she slips a blue bottle into his hand, yellow jasmine. It will be likely, and he says, it will be likely like drifting off into deep sleep when he's ready, and it's really sad because that Colum's going to kill himself, and he said for what's worth, she has his deepest gratitude, and it's kind of a hard scene to watch, just knowing that Colum is actually going to drink that poison, he's going to kill himself, but he's also dying, and he knows that he wants to go in the best, he wants to go where it's not going to hurt that much, and that poison is the best way that it won't hurt, and it's kind of sad to see, just knowing he's dying. I definitely did feel bad for him, but again, that really went with the central theme of this episode, which is about death, and it's about finality and things like that. It's something that both these characters really want. They want closure, they want finality, and I think that scene showed that very well, especially when leading back into what's going on with Alex and Mary. So back in Alex and Mary's room, he's coughing up a lung. Jack curls his head gingerly. Claire orders Mary as a nurse to assist her. She loads a pipe with a smaller concoction to what she gave Ned for his asthma in season 1, and Murtaugh looks very disturbed because he doesn't really know if this is going to work. Jack is untrusting her motives, argues with Claire about treating Alex's lung situation with pipe smoke, and understandably, Mary begs for his trust. They put a paper tuber on the patient's mouth and nose. Claire blows the thorn apple smoke down the tube and into his airwaves. Slowly, the coughing subsides, and now he only wheezes. It doesn't make him better, but it does kind of make him suffer less. And Jack walks to the fireplace, asks for Claire's attention. She professionally informs her that there's nothing more she can do, and you understand why Jack's actually upset. He's upset that because he wants to help his brother, and it's actually kind of sad what's going on there. Now, am I condoning what Jack is doing? No, but I can't help but say that I did kind of feel bad for him here. This is really just him wanting his brother to live, and wanting his brother to have more of a life, and not wanting this to be his brother's final moments. But Claire, unfortunately, there's nothing she can do, and she says she can only ease his pain, and again, he aggressively grabs her arm, but Murtaugh intervenes. Alex calls Jack over, informs him he's asked for the minister, not for last rites, but rather for his wedding, as in the wedding of Mary to Jack, because now that Alex is going to marry her, Jack is going to marry her, and Claire and Murtaugh swap a look that is priceless, and it's kind of a funny look that they have there, because again, they know that they're the ones that completely set this up. They're the ones that did this, and this is all they're doing. Also, we finally hear a date of when Jack is supposed to die, and that is none other than April 16th, which is the Battle of Culloden, and basically, that's saying that Jack might die in the Battle of Culloden. If Jack dies in the Battle of Culloden, then Frank is never alive, so we know that Jack definitely is not dying in the Battle of Culloden, because Claire comes back to Jack, Claire comes home to Frank in the premiere episode, and she's going to come home to Frank in the finale, so definitely, this is not going to be the end of Jack. We're going to see him again. He's not dead, and I don't think he's going to die in the finale. So, Mary's sad, but this is hardly her worst betrothal thus far she's aware of, and Alex wants the baby to have the Randall name and all the pomp and circumstance associated with it, and Claire ultimately wants the birth of Frank, and, that's what she wants. So, Jack storms out. Claire sends Murtaugh after him while she tends to Alex, and Alex says that he commends the well-being of those most precious to him to the one that he have loved the longest, and meanwhile, Jamie meets up with Dougal upon his return. He confirms the Brits are in name, team and preparing for his birthday celebrations, and Jamie, thanks to Claire, is already aware, but tells Dougal of Colum's arrival, and Jamie just says that Colum's arrived, and it's enough for Dougal to basically get him to come back. Not just to get him to come back, but also to have this closure with his brother. He wants to be able to have that final moment, because Dougal wants to be able to have that final moment, just like Mary wants to have those final moments with Alex. Colum wants those final moments with his brother, and I really enjoyed that. So back at the inn, Murtaugh doesn't understand why Claire is encouraging Mary to wed Jack, because why would she want that? To save the girl? And he basically suggests that he get married to Mary, and basically Claire tries to explain the situation to him, and how after Jack dies in 2 days, Mary will be entitled to his pension, his name, and his station, and Murtaugh drops her off at the tavern, where Jack is attempting to drink the situation away. She enters to find him hammered, and he requests her help to convince Alex to give her the marriage idea. She brings up the curse of Jack's death. They exchange words, and he finally puts his Hail Mary by reminding her of his damage to Jamie. And the Hail Mary, yes, the episode was like one last Hail Mary, but also because about Mary, because he literally gets married to Mary in this episode. And this monologue he had was so well done. He says, he says that, did he never tell you the things I did in that room? Yes, I know the sound he makes of the last when he has lost himself, and I regret none of it. The pain, the fear, I revel it in. And really, he's trying to say, look, yes, I did these horrible things to Jamie, and I am not at all ashamed about it. And Claire throws her own spear in the works and guilts him in the union, saying, you are sending your brother to his grave with a broken heart. And she really thinks it's a terrible thing to do for Jack and Mary to get married, because she knows, and even though she's wanted this marriage to happen, she's endorsed this marriage completely. She's even set up this marriage. At the last moment, she's not okay, because she cares about Mary, and she does not want Mary to feel this way. She doesn't want Mary to have to go through this pain. And also, having to do this to his brother is really sad to do, but it's totally something that Jack would do. Jack would do what's best for him. Jack would do what's, what helps him best, and that's really the kind of character that Jack really is, and I think it really says a lot about his character. So back at the house, Jamie and Dougal enter Colum's room. The brothers are snide, they're very sarcastic with one another. Dougal brags about restoring the king to his throne, and Colum informs that he is not there to join the cause, but rather to disclose his will in the future of the Mackenzie clan. Hamish will be his heir apparent, with the guardian to raise him along with Ned, and he asks Jamie to do the work. Someone the clan will follow until Hamish comes of age, and Dougal's pissed, to say the least. He makes the play that he should be his guardian, as he is Hamish's kin, and he should be the one to look after Hamish. He should totally be the one. And Colum points out the clan will not support Dougal, and it makes sense why, because Dougal has betrayed Scotland. He's allied with the British, and he's not really on their side anymore, so it makes sense why they don't really trust him. And Jamie, very smartly sits this one out, because he doesn't want to get involved. He's already dealing with a lot, and it's kind of funny to see Jamie watching this all from the sidelines, but Colum to say that if he was as popular as he believes himself to be, there would be more men here today in this army of his. And it's kind of funny just seeing Colum say, look, Dougal, you're not, you're not a celebrity, you're not that famous, but it's also sad, because these are their last moments together, and that Colum's dying, and really, Colum just wants those last moments with him, and really, that's the one thing that he really wanted here. And Jamie's honored, but admits he'll use every option in his power, including raising the Mackenzie banner to beat the British. Colum continues to differentiate Jamie from Dougal, and citing Jamie's instinct to place his men before himself for any cause, he continues to differentiate Dougal from himself, and he's, basically show why he's different from, Colum and everything. And he says that his poor brother, he has lived his life crippled in body, but he has lived his crippled life in mind. And really, Dougal hasn't. Dougal has done all these things without thinking, and that's been the fatal error of his ways. So I like the way that scene was done. Really good stuff. And especially Graham McTavish just killed it in that scene. He is incredible. He really is a great actor, but I don't really get to command him as much. In this episode, he really killed in that monologue. I love the way that scene was done. Amazing stuff, and really shows the difference between Colum and Dougal, and I really enjoyed that. So back to Alex's room, we see a creepy wedding proceeds between Mary and Jack. Claire and Murtaugh begrudgingly act as witnesses. It's really weird. Just the things that they were saying, will you fulfill these promises to each other? Is there anyone, it's not even in a church, it's literally at the bedside of his brother dying. I don't think there's a worse way to have a wedding, honestly. Like, if I could think of a worse way to have a wedding, I could. I don't think there's a worse way to have a wedding. That's probably the worst possible way to have a wedding, and it's just really awkward, definitely, and especially seeing Claire and Murtaugh just standing there not knowing what the hell to do was really weird. And Jamie suggests to Charles a surprise attack during Cumberland's birthday festivities, but in order to pull it off, they are already tied tired, hungry, and exhausted men will need to march 12 miles by moonlight, and there's no way that's going to happen. Charles will lead one group, Jamie and the general will lead the next. The prince vows to bring a battle of his finest wine as a gift to Cumberland, which he will present after the officer's capture, and basically, you get the sense that this isn't really going to work, and that you don't really know if this is actually going to happen. So in Colum's room, Dougal arrives. He's very drunk. He unloads some pent-up aggression stemming from their childhood. Colum says he's no longer has the strength to fight. What commences is basically he says that he's drunk enough to melt the situation. He remains as sober as a Barney, and Colum says that he, beyond any injury you could do him, and Colum speaks softly now. Dougal gets in his face as he recounts the day, and it's such a well-done scene because finally we see what Dougal is so upset by, because he gets in his face by the day that Colum was thrown from a horse and how he never recovered, and this was the first time that Dougal's heart was broken. He asks his brother to respond. Colum does not. He's gone, empty ball in hand. Dougal breaks down, and Colum's dead. It's just so sad to see that finally, not even in his dying moments, they were still comparing each other, and they were still fighting, and that's something that Dougal will always have to remember, that his brother was dying in those moments, and Dougal says, he turns his back on him one final time, leave him alone in the darkest in the world, and all he hoped to say to him remains trapped in here, right here, unsaid forever, and really, I think that sums up any death. Everyone talks about those final words of death. What are those final words that you say? And that's something that I think Dougal is really thinking about. Dougal didn't really appreciate his brother till those final moments, and it's really sad to see. I really did actually feel bad for Dougal, even though I don't usually love Dougal as a character. I really did feel bad for him because no one should have to go through something like that. Just realizing how much their brother cares for them in their final moments only for their brother to die is very sad to see, and sad to see Colum go. I knew he was going to go eventually, but really sad to see, and definitely I felt very bad for Dougal in this situation. So Alex then wheezes while Jack stands guard to the left side of the bed. Mary on the right. He stops. It's done. Mary cries, and Alex is dead. And it's really sad to see. Basically, Claire consoles her. Jack coughs away the tears and proceeds to beat Alex. He's mad, but he's also trying to scare Mary and Claire. He composes himself, slicks back his hair, glares at Claire, and I think the real reason he did this is because he wanted Alex to not die from just, he wanted him to just do it quickly, and basically he glares at Claire, storms out into the darkness from whence he dwells, and he's really going to have a lot of things to do, and I think they did a great job of making Jack a three-dimensional character. Jack's a really nasty, disgusting, vile human being, but he is a human being, and he does have emotions, and this episode really does show that, and I really enjoyed that, and he really does care about his brother at the end of the day. So Jamie is shocked that Claire encouraged Mary to wed Jack. She informs of Jack's impending death to occur the following day at Culloden, and Jamie remains hopeful that they may avoid Culloden, so she promises to help Jamie dispatch a Jack in the event that they avoid the battle. Jamie grins, they smooch, and basically Jamie says, remind me not to get on your bad side, and we see a horse and rider gallop in the darkness. Scottish soldiers appear exhausted. Murtaugh Percy tells Jamie that the prince and his aide got lost, and now the men in the party have scattered. Jamie, and basically their entire plan has failed because the party scattered, and Jamie attempts to convince his partner, the general, to attack the British birthday party anyway, with only half the men planned, and the general says no, insisting they march back. Culloden more is happening, and there's no way to stop it. Culloden's happening, they're not going to stop it. That is the way the episode ends. Great way to end stuff, perfect way to sub the finale, but let's get into this episode overall. So overall, guys, I think a great episode of finality and closure. I mean, really, we got a lot of closure here. Dougal now realizing that, how much he cared about his brother until those final moments was really sad to watch. But like I said, Graham McTavish just killed it in this episode. And I can't wait to see him on Preacher. I'm looking forward to seeing his character on Preacher because we still have yet to see him. And I'm looking forward to seeing him on that. But I think he really just killed it in that scene. As far as Jack goes, I really think they made Jack a much more three-dimensional character here. Because we saw, while he does care about his brother, he's not at all a good guy, but he does deep down care about his brother, and he really did want his brother to not have to suffer, but basically, he ended up with Mary, and that's really how it had to go. Culloden's happening, so Jack is not gonna die, but I'm also confused, because if Jack dies, how the hell is Frank alive? That doesn't really make sense to me, so that's something that's going to be very interesting, is how do they prevent Jack's death now that Culloden is happening, because it seems like they do prevent Jack's death, so I don't know what's going to happen there. I thought this was going to be the episode where Jamie dies. I really thought that's what they were going to do. The Battle of Culloden was going to be in this episode, but no. Instead, we're getting a supersized 90-minute episode, and I think it's the best thing that they could do. For the finale, we need a 90-minute episode. There's a lot of story to tell, because we're going to go back and forth between Jamie and Jamie and the Battle of Culloden and what's going on there, and then also go to, Claire and Brianna and Roger, because we're going to meet those two characters in the finale. I can't wait to meet those two characters. I've heard so much amazing stuff about, especially Brianna. I've heard amazing things about her, and if that really was Brianna and Faith, that I think this episode would really confirm if that really was Brianna, because Brianna does have red hair. The girl in Faith had red hair. I think it's pretty much, we can assume that was Brianna. How are they going to win the Battle of Culloden? It really does not seem like they're going to win the Battle of Culloden at this point. It seems like it's going to be the British, that they are ahead of them, that they don't really know what they're doing, and I think Jamie has this thought that they might win, but I don't really know if they're gonna win. We'll have to see how that goes. Also, it seems like Claire is gonna go back. We're gonna get to that. How does Claire get back there? We don't really know. Again, we're gonna have to see how that happens. We're gonna see Jamie dying, though. We're gonna see all that stuff. All of our questions from the season 2 premiere are gonna be answered in the finale. I can't wait for that finale. I'm pretty sure this is Mary's last appearance. If it's not, I think the finale will definitely be. I like the subtle mention of Gallus's death. It's something that I didn't think we were going to get here, but I like that we know that Gallus did die, but she didn't necessarily die. She was a witch after all, so is she dead? I don't really know. I'm sure we'll find out, but I think Gallus is probably dead. I mean, if you burn at the stake, that's how witches die, so I'm pretty sure that she is dead, and especially because she was a witch, she definitely is dead, as we know. But she also was from the 60s, so maybe she's probably dead. I'm assuming she's dead. Definitely we'll have to see, I'm pretty sure that she's definitely dead, but I'm not really sure. Actually, I'm thinking she's dead, but I don't really know. And then I think that's, Alex is dead, like I said, was very sad to see, definitely. But overall, guys, cannot wait for next week's finale. It's going to be not next week. We actually have to wait 2 weeks for the finale, but that's fine because we had to wait 2 weeks for the finale last year, and we're getting a supersized episode, so I don't really think I can be too upset that we're going to wait for the finale because, one, it's actually named after the book Dragonfly and Amber, and two, it's also 90 minutes, so I'm really looking forward to next week's finale. It's going to be, 2 weeks. I keep saying next week's, but I'm really looking forward to the season finale. I can't believe we're already on the season finale, but we really only have one episode left, guys. I'm looking forward to seeing really how that's going to go. That's going to be very interesting to see how that all plays out, especially the way they juggle those two timelines. I think 90 minutes will give them a lot more time to have finality and closure like this episode wanted to give us. But let me know what you guys thought of this episode. Love to your thoughts on it. Really enjoyed this episode overall. Amazing stuff. Really some hard scenes to watch, but really great stuff overall, especially from Graham McTavish, who just really killed it here and really shows his dramatic abilities. And I will see you guys in my next one, which will be for the series premiere of American Gothic. I know you guys want me to review it. I will review it in the next episode, next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.